Short, Mama's Boy. Exterior, beachside, night. A group of children, no older than 9, are lined up along the shore of the lake. Farther from the water, on the pebble-covered beach, a large group of people look on, lit by a bonfire. A large cross stands near the bonfire, casting a shadow on the beach. An older man stands in the water, a preacher, his arms spread wide as if waiting for a hug. Near the front of the line of children is Daria, a young girl, and her mother, who is fussing with Daria's hair.
Oh, Daria, you remind me so much of myself.
Mother smooths Daria's hair and tucks it behind her ear. Other children talk amongst themselves, but no one pays attention to Daria except Mother.
This was the most important moment of my life. Until you were born, of course.
The first child in line marches into the water towards the preacher. Mother takes this as a sign to take her seat. She gently grabs Daria by the cheeks and kisses her forehead.
Your father and I are so proud of you.
The preacher takes a child into his arms and dunks them into the water. Daria smiles and Mother squeezes her daughter's hand once. Mother is crying with a smile. She wipes a tear and then walks back to the group of parents on the beach. The child is pulled back to the surface and the crowd cheers. It is Daria's turn. She wades into the water. The man takes her into his arms, prays over her. While he does this, she looks on the beach. It's impossible to make anyone out. They're all shadows. Cross is the only thing she can really see.
Hold your breath.
Daria sucks in a breath that puffs out her cheeks. The priest dunks her underwater. It is dark and quiet under the water. Daria opens her eyes and looks up at the preacher, whose face is warped by the water. She tips her head farther back and looks at the moon. Time almost seems to stop. The preacher yanks her out of the water. She gasps for air. Title card. 15 years pass. Interior, Mother's house, morning. Mother stands in the doorway of an empty room. Slowly, she steps inside. She runs her hands carefully over the walls. She walks around the entire room this way before sitting in the center on the floor. She covers her face with her hands. Father steps into the doorway, arms crossed.
Get up, honey. It's not worth it.
I'm not a mother anymore.
Mother looks up at Father, pain in her eyes.
What did we do wrong?
Nothing. Daria is gone. That was her decision. There's nothing we could have done. Dinner's ready when you're done in here.
Father walks away from the room. Mother stays in the same position, watching him leave. She looks down the hallway he's walking and sees pictures of Daria that line the walls. She looks around the room again and sees, on the back of the door, a cross. It is the only thing left in the room. Suddenly she stands. She marches into the hall and begins to tear down the pictures in the hall, gathering them in a large stack in her arms. She moves through the house, pulling down and stacking every picture of her daughter in her arms. She grabs a baby book out of the cabinet. It's pink and says in gold lettering, Daria Ashley Shelley. Mother adds it to the pile. She moves outside to a trash can on the side of the house and throws the pictures in. She joins her husband at the table.
Feel better?
Mother doesn't look up from her plate and nods. They eat in silence. The house looks almost empty without the pictures. There are only a few left of Mother and Father. One picture of Daria is left. It sits on Mother's nightstand. It's of Daria and Mother the day she was born. It's placed under a cross that matches the one hanging in the empty room. Next to the nightstand is a window that overlooks the trash can. On the top, a picture of Daria, who had started going by Lee the day she graduated high school. Exterior, Lee House, afternoon. April and Lee, formerly Daria, stand in the front yard of their new house. It is incredibly run down and ugly. Many of the windows are cracked and it is in desperate need of a coat of paint. Lee frowns.
Maybe this was a bad idea?
April puts her hands on her hips and purses her lips.
It just needs some paint. Maybe some flowers?
You know that's not what I mean.
Lee, I told you, Uncle Jim really doesn't mind. He was all, April, honey, I haven't used that old place since I joined the force. You take it, you get that boy out of his parents' house.
Lee laughed half-heartedly. He sighs, ashamed.
I know, but I hate to take a handout like this. I should be able to afford a place of my own.
Lee rubs the back of his neck nervously. April grabs his hand so he'll stop.
You will. Just not yet. This is just temporary. We'll be out of here before you know it.
Lee takes a breath. He squeezes her hand.
What kind of flowers?
April smiles. They continue to discuss flower choices inaudibly as they begin to unpack what little they have from their car. Interior, Lee House, night. The house is lit by candles. The walls are bare except for a few pictures of April and Lee that have been taped up. They have very little furniture and only a few rooms. Small pots of flowers sit on the floor around them. April and Lee eat takeout on the floor, huddled under a blanket.
How do you feel?
About.
April nudges him playfully with her elbow.
Our home.
Lee lays on his back and looks up at the cracked ceiling.
It's fine for now, I guess.
I thought you'd be more excited.
April lays down next to him.
About what? Moving out of my parents' place?
April nods.
I'll be more excited when we get far away from anyone who calls me Daria out of spite. And when I can grow a beard.
April laughs and rolls over onto her stomach. She grabs his chin.
You look so hot with some stubble.
Lee playfully bats her hand away. He places his hand behind his head. He takes a breath. April rests her chin on her arms. Lee stares at the ceiling. April searches his face. They're silent for a moment. Lee looks over at her.
You were right about the flowers.
April smiles.
I know.
When they finish their dinner, they blow up their air mattress and fall asleep with their noses touching. Interior, Lee house, morning. The air mattress is completely deflated, and Lee and April are basically sleeping on the floor. They are on opposite sides of the mattress with only their fingers touching. April's phone is buzzing. She groans, rolls over, picks it up. The screen reads, Mom.
Oh, fuck.
Interior, restaurant, morning. April sits across the table from her parents. A waitress brings coffee and sets a cup down in front of each of them. She pours them each a cup and seems to take an unreasonably long time. April and her parents look at each other awkwardly until the waitress finishes and walks away. They all quietly thank her as she leaves.
So, how are you?
I'm fine.
Good. And how is...
Lee? He's fine, Dad.
Good.
They sit in silence for a moment. April's dad takes a loud sip of his coffee.
Sweetheart, we want you to come home.
Mom.
Honey?
What? That's what we're here for, right? To bring our daughter home.
Yeah, but I thought we were going to take it slow.
Mom, I literally just moved out.
April's mom touches April's hand softly.
You know we like Lee, and you know that you're just trying to help her, him. But, well, we are worried about you. You two are living in a shack out in the middle of nowhere, and you know how the rest of the town feels about him.
April moves her hand away from her mother's. Her mother sighs and shakes her head.
We just want you to be safe.
I am safe. Mom, I'm 23 years old. I should have moved out a long time ago anyway.
But why now? And like this? You know you two can come live with us, right?
He wants to live on his own. I guess it makes him feel like his own person for once.
But why drag you into this? You only have a high school education and a part-time job at a hardware store. You can't support yourself, let alone Lee.
He didn't drag me into anything. I chose to follow him, and I'm working on getting a better job. I've been writing a lot and sending my poems to publishers. I actually got some responses this time.
But honey, you can't expect.
I'm not moving back. Can we talk about something else?
They sit in silence for a moment. The waitress returns with their food. She places plates in front of each person. They all thank her awkwardly as she leaves.
What have you been writing about?
Interior, Lee house, afternoon. Lee stands in the shower, directly under the spray of water. He lets water drip down his face. He uses his arms to push his breasts flat against his chest. He can hear his heart pounding loudly. He lets his arm fall back to his side. Lee looks up at the ceiling, away from his body, and turns off the water. He wraps himself in a towel and gets out of the shower. He stops in front of a mirror and stares at his reflection.
You don't even look like a man. You look like your mama. Always have.
Lee lets his head fall against the mirror. It shatters. He looks up surprised. His reflection is distorted by the cracks. A drop of blood rolls down his nose. He places a corner of the towel on his forehead to stop the bleeding. He walks into the bedroom and checks his phone. He opens his messages and opens his conversation with April, the only active conversation on his phone. He begins to type, "Will you be back soon?" But he decides to delete it. Instead he types, "Do you work today?" The message sends. He gets dressed, keeping the towel pressed to his head. He checks his phone again. Nothing. He looks into the bathroom and catches a glimpse of himself in the shattered mirror. Blood runs between the cracks. He slams the bathroom door. Interior, grocery store, afternoon. Lee pushes an empty shopping cart around the store. No one pays much attention to him, but he is looking around as though everybody is looking at him. He moves quickly through the aisles. When he's gotten everything he needs, he heads back to the front of the store. There are only 2 checkout lines. Lee recognizes both of the checkers. One a young man and the other an older woman. He chooses the lesser of 2 evils and stands in the older woman's line. There's only one person ahead of him, and they finish checking out quickly. He gives his groceries to the woman to scan. She looks up at him and then down at his groceries.
Did you find everything all right, ma'am?
Lee bites the inside of his cheeks. The woman does not look up at him.
Yes.
Lee hands her his money and leaves. Interior, car, afternoon. Lee puts the key into the ignition, but it won't start the car. He lays his head on the steering wheel, wincing when it hits the small cut on his forehead.
Fuck.
His phone buzzes and he picks it up without lifting his head. There's a message from April that reads, "Yeah, I'll be home around 8." Lee starts the car. Interior, Lee house, evening. The sun has gone down. Lee sits at the table. There's a plate of untouched salmon in front of him and another one across the table. The car pulls into the driveway and headlights shine through the windows. The sound of April getting out of her car and thanking the driver can be heard. The car pulls away and April walks to the door. She notices the dinner Lee prepared and smiles. She grabs her plate and scoots her chair closer to his.
You didn't have to wait for me.
It's fine. I just finished cooking.
April and Lee begin to eat their dinner.
How was work?
I'm going to kill myself if I have to keep working there for much longer.
Lee laughs and nudges her with his shoulder.
I'm serious. It's driving me insane taking orders from a 17-year-old.
At least you have a job. I'm going insane staying home alone with no TV.
Oh, about that. My parents want to buy us some furniture and stuff.
Oh, thank God. Is that what they wanted to talk to you about then?
April suddenly notices the cut on his head. She gently touches his face.
What happened?
It's nothing. Don't change the subject.
April sighs and looks down at her food.
No. They want me to come home.
Lee nods slowly. April places her hand on his.
Not because of you. They don't think I can support us.
You can't.
Shut up. I'm not done. I told them I wasn't moving back. I am way too old to still be living with my parents.
Maybe you should move back. I mean...
April glares at him and he stops talking.
I told you. This is where I want to be.
I know.
April starts fiddling with her fork. She won't look Lee in the eye.
Yeah. They also want to pay for you to go to therapy.
Lee purses his lips. April looks up at him, reading his face.
I know. But they have a friend who's a therapist, so they'll get a good price, and they just want you to try going once. After everything you've been through, this might be good for you.
Lee nods. He doesn't look up at April for a moment.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. It can't hurt to try.
Good.
They sit in silence for a moment. The sound of them eating seems amplified by the sudden quiet. Lee finally breaks the silence.
I saw Michael, that guy I dated for like 2 years in high school, at the grocery store today. I guess he works there now.
Oh, God. I'm so sorry. Did he notice you?
Are you kidding? If he had, I would have come home in a body bag. He never got over accidentally dating a boy. He still comments on all my Facebook posts.
April laughs, shaking her head. Lee excitedly keeps going.
That lady from a mom's church group was there too. When she was checking me out, I swear, she looked at me like I was the devil himself.
April laughs loudly. She snorts and covers her mouth. with her
We
hand.
have to get out of this fucking town.
They finish their dinner and blow out the candles. Exterior, Lee house, morning. April's parents are bringing paint supplies and furniture into the house. They help April and Lee clean the house, scrubbing it down, getting it ready for the paint. Off-screen, Lee is at the therapist at a later date. Their conversation is heard over the action of the screen.
I'm glad you agreed to meet with me today.
I'm not used to stuff like this. I don't like to talk about things. I'm a little nervous.
April, Lee, and April's dad are painting inside and outside the house. They're laughing and talking. April's mom offers some lemonade, and they all gratefully accept a glass. They sit on the lawn and watch the paint dry.
That's all right. Is there anything you want to start with?
I don't know. I guess I've been feeling a little uncertain of myself lately.
A little later, April's parents unload furniture from their truck, a sofa, a TV, and stand, a real mattress with a frame, and some lamps. They begin setting up each room. The shack starts to look more like a house.
How so?
I don't know. I guess I just worry that I'm wrong. About who I am, I mean.
Night falls and the house looks much better than it did. April and Lee sleep on their bed. A rock flies through their window, smacking April on the head. Her head is bleeding.
What do you mean by that?
The people I haven't driven away, they've given up so much for me. What if it wasn't worth it?
Why wouldn't it be worth it?
April, with a paper towel pressed to her head, and Lee step outside to see the word tranny sprayed painted on their house. April covers her mouth with her free hand. Lee immediately turns and walks back inside, and April follows, confused.
I just mean that I guess I'm worried that my mom was right.
April finds him packing her a bag. He shoves it into her hands, but she throws it to the ground. They yell at each other.
Maybe I'm just being selfish.
Later, the bag sits on the ground of their room. Lee is placing a Band-Aid on April's head. She's looking at the bag, avoiding Lee's eyes. When she looks up and she sees Lee is crying. She pulls him into her arms. He holds her tightly.
Your mom told you that you were being selfish?
The next day, April and Lee paint over the vandalism. Interior, therapist office, afternoon. Lee sits across from a therapist. Keeps his eyes down on his fidgeting hands. He's having trouble making eye contact. The therapist is watching him expectantly. Lee keeps wringing his hands. The therapist reaches into her desk and pulls out a stress ball. She hands it to Lee.
This won't work if you don't open up a little bit.
Lee looks at the stress ball in his hands.
I don't want to talk about my mom.
Therapist nods and writes something on a clipboard.
That's okay. This is your first session, so we can take it slow. Why don't you tell me a little bit more about yourself?
Like what?
Anything.
Lee seems frustrated with that answer. He takes a breath and thinks.
I don't know. I'm trans and broke. I'm trying to save up for top surgery, but I can't exactly get a job here because of who I am. I have to rely on my girlfriend who I've been dragging through all this shit with me. She's the only person I have left and her life fucking sucks because of it. I just want to get out of this town.
Lee realizes he's given away more than he meant to. He looks embarrassed and tries to compose himself.
And I like to cook.
All right. Well, there's a lot we could go into. But let's start with something easy.
The therapist writes something on the clipboard.
Tell me about your girlfriend.
Lee relaxes in his chair, finally. He releases his tight grip on the stress ball. The therapist realizes she's asked the right question.
Do you think she's the one?
Lee smiles wide. Interior, Lee House, evening. Lee holds out a ring to April. He looks nervous, like he could cry or throw up. His face is bright red. April has tears in her eyes. She holds her hand out to him.
Yes.
Lee smiles, relieved. He takes the hand and puts the ring on her ring finger. April pulls him closer and kisses him passionately. Suddenly, her phone rings. She ignores it. Immediately after it stops ringing, it starts again. April reluctantly pulls away slightly to check her phone, still wrapped in Lee's arms.
Oh my God, it's my parents.
Yeah, that makes sense.
April raises an eyebrow.
I needed a ride to get the ring. You should answer it.
April shoots him a teasing look and answers her phone. Her parents talk loudly over each other. April has to hold the phone a little bit away from her face so as not to burst her eardrums.
Hi. I think you know how my night is going. I said yes. Duh. Okay, we're kind of busy. Fine. Hold on. I want to talk to you.
April gives Lee a look that says, "You don't have to." Lee smiles and takes the phone from her.
Congratulations! When's the big day?
Well, I'm not sure yet. I just proposed.
Right, of course. Good.
Give me the phone, honey. I want to talk to him.
Struggling can be heard through the phone. Lee smiles at April, who rolls her eyes. They're both so happy they can't contain it.
Congratulations, sweetheart.
Thank you.
Take good care of April. She's given up so much for this.
Lee's face falls a bit. He looks over at April. She notices and takes the phone back. She shakes her head, smiling. Lee tries to match her smile, but can't quite.
Leave my fiance alone, you guys. No, Mom, you can't come over. Some other time, Mom. I have to go. Yes, I do. Goodbye, Mom. Yes, I'll tell him. I love you guys too. Goodbye.
April hangs up the phone and throws it on the couch. She wraps herself back into Lee's arms and continues their kiss. She pulls away and bats her eyes dramatically.
What do you want to do with the rest of our night?
Lee laughs.
I think you have an idea.
April kisses him again and moves out of his arms. She grabs his hand and starts pulling him up to their bedroom.
What did your parents want to tell me?
My dad wants to take you suit shopping.
Lee smiles and lets April pull him down onto the bed on top of her. Their noses are touching.
Suit shopping, huh?
Shut up.
Lee kisses her. Interior, Lee house, night. April is sitting on the bed in just her underwear. Lee is standing in a steamy bathroom, fresh out of the shower. He's staring at the cracked mirror and pulling the skin on his face. April is watching him, her arms pulling her knees to her chest.
What
Sorry.
happened to the mirror?
Not sure. I barely touched it, and it's shattered. This place really is such a shithole.
April laughs. She watches him for a moment longer, then grabs a book off her nightstand. Frankenstein. She begins to read. They sit in silence for a moment.
Do you think I look like a man?
April looks up from her book, shocked.
Of course I do. Where'd that come from?
Nowhere. I was just thinking.
April sets her book down and gets off the bed. She starts to move towards him.
You need to stop thinking.
Lee finally looks over at her. He gestures for her to stay where she is. April purses her lips and reluctantly sits back down.
Like that.
Sorry. I'm not dressed.
I know. I understand.
It does not seem like she does. She is suddenly self-conscious on how little she's wearing. She reaches under the bed, pulls up the shirt she'd been wearing earlier. She puts it on and pulls up the covers around her legs to cover herself up. She pretends to go back to reading, but keeps looking at Lee out of the corner of her eye. Lee shuts the bathroom door. Interior, morning, Lee house. Sun shines through the window onto Lee's face. He opens his eyes slowly, squinting at the sunlight in his eyes. Distantly, he can hear April whispering angrily into her phone. Lee adjusts his position to hear her better.
No, you don't understand. This could get him killed. No, I'm not being dramatic. Dad told you not to post anything. Well, it wasn't your news to share. This is my life, Aunt Sharon. You know what? I can't do this right now. Just delete the post.
April hangs up. Lee moves back to his original position to hide his eavesdropping. April climbs back into bed, and Lee rolls over to wrap his arms around her. She snuggles closer to him, her eyes worried.
Did I wake you up?
Lee nods softly.
Are you okay?
April runs her hand through Lee's hair.
Let's get out of this fucking town.
Exterior, early afternoon, car. Lee looks at April's face in the rearview mirror from the passenger seat. She keeps her eyes on the road. Her phone buzzes with texts and notifications. Her knuckles are white, gripping the steering wheel. She's biting the inside of her cheek. Lee looks out the window. The small town fading far behind them, then back at April. Her phone buzzes again. Her mom. The text reads, "Answer the damn phone, April." He turns down the radio.
Where are we going?
The closest city.
Why?
To celebrate our engagement.
Her phone starts to ring. It's her mom. She answers and then hangs up to get it to stop ringing.
A week later?
I just needed to get out of town, okay?
Lee nods slowly and looks back out the window. April touches his hand softly, looks at her.
I'm sorry. Just stressed. I really want to do something nice for you.
Lee interlocks his fingers with hers.
What do you have planned?
Exterior, movie theater, afternoon. April pulls into a parking lot near the entrance of the theater. Lee and her step out of the car. Lee sees a poster for a movie he's wanted to see and points at it. April smiles and walks over to the ticket booth. She puts up 2 fingers. Interior, movie theater. April and Lee sit next to each other in the back of the theater. They've lifted the armrest between them to make one big seat. Lee has his arm around April and she's resting her head on his chest. April's phone lights up again. Lee looks down at it. The text from her mom reads, "Call me or I'm calling the police." April tries to pull the phone out of his line of sight before he can read it. She looks furious.
I'll be right back.
Lee nods. April shimmies her way through the aisle to the exit. Once she's out the doors, Lee follows to the doors. He looks through the crack and sees her pacing on the phone.
I know he's getting threats. Yes, I know. I am too. We aren't in the town anymore. I got him out of there. We're at a movie. Yeah, I called the police while he was in line for snacks. They don't think it's serious. I I just want him to have a nice day before this blows up in his face, so just stop calling, okay? I've got it under control.
Lee backs away from the doors and lets out a breath. He pushes through. April hangs up quickly and fakes a smile for him.
What did she want?
Oh, you know, my mom. So clingy.
Right. Well, I'm going to the bathroom. Tell me what I missed when I get back.
Yeah, of course.
April bites her lip. She looks like she might cry. Lee looks like he wants to ask her what's wrong, but she waves awkwardly and walks back into the theater. He looks at her confused, and waves back, uncertainly. He goes to the bathroom instead. When he gets back to the theater, April snuggles close. He holds her tightly. The movie isn't sad, but she cries quietly. He starts to tear up a bit too. He wipes his eyes, before April can see. Interior, car, later afternoon. April and Lee are sitting in the car. April has yet to start it. She smiles nervously at Lee.
Good movie, right?
Are you going to tell me what's going on now?
April takes a deep breath. She gets her phone out and opens Facebook. She hands the phone over to Lee. He takes it and looks at the screen. There's a congratulatory post for him and April from her aunt. It isn't the original. Someone reposted a screenshot. April is looking out the window, not at him while he reads. Lee scrolls down to look at the comments. All threats. Some against him, others against April. One person posted his address. Michael was referenced in almost every comment. Lee looks up at her.
I told Sharon to delete it, but someone got a screenshot before she did, I guess. I already called the police, but they seem to think it's not worth their time. I'm so sorry.
Is that what your mom has been calling about all day?
April looks down.
Yeah, she's worried. But I told her I couldn't just leave you. Not now.
Maybe you should.
April looks at him angry.
You know I won't do that.
Lee raises his voice, startling April.
God, April, don't be stupid. You could get hurt or worse.
So could you.
I can't fucking walk away from this.
Lee punches the car door. April flinches like he hit her.
You can. So just fucking go.
She lowers her voice, tears in her eyes.
Why are you always trying to get rid of me?
Fuck, this isn't about you and me, April. What am I supposed to do if you get hurt because of me? How am I supposed to live with myself?
We're supposed to be in this together, Lee. You're going to look out for me, and I'm going to look out for you. Please, don't push me away again.
April starts to cry. Lee looks out the window away from her. April shakes and sobs. He takes a deep breath and looks at her. He pulls her into the passenger seat with him. His face softens.
I'm scared.
It's just a Facebook post. They've had 6 years since I came out to get rid of me. And they haven't yet. They're all talk.
He cups April's chin and turns her head so he can see her eyes.
They're all talk, okay? It'll be okay. I was just overreacting. I'm sorry.
April looks at him for a moment, trying to see as if he's telling the truth. She doesn't seem to believe him. She buries her face in his chest. He squeezes her to him. Interior, car, late afternoon. April and Lee are driving home. They're holding hands. The windows are down. Lee is looking at April. Her hair blows into her face. She lets go of his hand and brushes her hair back behind her ear. She puts both hands on the steering wheel. Lee looks back out the window. He sticks his head into the wind. His hair whips around his face. Their town comes up on the horizon. Interior, Lee bedroom, evening. Lee and April's empty bedroom, filled with light. A window allows sunlight to shine into the room. There's a suitcase by the open door. April's phone sits on the bed. It lights up with a notification, interrupting the stillness. A text from a family member. I'm sorry for your loss, honey. You're in our thoughts. Lee grabs the phone off the bed, grabs the suitcase as he leaves.
I found it. It was on the bed.
Interior, Lee kitchen, evening. The kitchen has a few dishes in the sink. A dirty dish towel is laying on the drying rack. Dust floats around the room, visible only in the sunlight pouring in from the window.
I knew I should have looked there first.
You weren't just stalling?
Maybe I was. Are you sure you're okay being here alone? I mean, I barely knew that woman. I really don't need to be at her funeral.
Interior, Lee bathroom, evening. The bathroom. The door is closed and sunlight is crawling in under it. A cracked mirror reflects the distorted image of the shower, its curtain pulled to one side. Different types of shampoo, conditioner, and body wash are scattered all over the sides of the tub.
Yeah, I'll be fine. It's only for tonight, and anyway, your uncle will be here all night.
I know he's a cop, but if you hear anything or get creeped out or just don't hesitate to call 911.
Don't worry so much, April.
Interior, Lee front room, evening. Inside the front room, out of the window, April and Lee are saying goodbye. April's parents are parked in the street. April hugs him tightly. She kisses him. Neither of them want to let go of each other. April's mom's head peeps out of the passenger window. She waves April over. Lee reluctantly lets go of her. He kisses her nose. She walks over to her car, looking back at him every few steps. As they drive away, Lee stands in the yard, waving. He keeps waving until he can't see her anymore. Then he looks around the yard, but sees nothing suspicious. He goes inside. The sun begins to set. Interior, Lee house, sunset. A police car pulls up in front of the house. Lee, who is making dinner, spots the car from the kitchen window. He places a serving on a plate and walks it out to the car. Jim smiles and takes the food with a nod. Lee walks back inside and eats his dinner, looking out at the car. Interior, car, sunset. April is absentmindedly eating grapes from a bag in the back seat. They pass through the town April took Lee to. She stares out the window intently. The sun is setting. Interior, mother house, evening. Mother and father eat dinner. Mother is at the table, alone. Father sits in a recliner in front of the TV. They don't speak to or look at each other. The sun disappears below the horizon. Mother grabs her car keys and leaves. Father doesn't look up from the TV. Interior, Lee house, night. Lee is watching a movie, an old horror movie on the couch. He hears a sound and turns the TV down. Nothing. His phone buzzes, making him jump. It's a message from April that reads, "I feel like we've been driving for days." Lee laughs softly and texts her back. He turns the TV back up. Interior, car, night. April stares at her phone, waiting for Lee to text her back. She's worried. Her phone buzzes and she sighs in relief. Text from Lee, "You've only been gone for like 2 hours. You'll survive." She laughs and writes back, "Is it lame if I miss you already?" A second later, her phone buzzes twice. First message, "Yes." Second, "I miss you too." She smiles. Interior, church, night. The church is dimly lit in a warm yellow light. Mother dips her fingers into a bowl of holy water at the entrance. She makes a sign of the cross. A drop of water rolls down her face. Exterior, Lee house, night. Jim is sitting on his phone, watching a video. A car pulls up next to him. Kids get out and run toward the house. Jim jumps out of the car to chase them away. Lee, inside the house, looks out the window at Jim. He doesn't see the other figures running around the back. Interior, Lee house, night. Lee looks out the window, waiting for Jim to return. He turns to reach for his phone when the back door is kicked in. He stops and straightens, his eyes wide. Interior, car, night. April sighs and sets her phone down. She looks out the window at the stars. She rolls down the window and sticks her head out the window. The wind picks up her hair and whips it around her face. She breathes in deep. Her mother tugs at her shirt, and April reluctantly pulls her head in and rolls up her window. Interior, Lee house, night. Lee is a child again, back at the lake, being pushed under the water. He looks up at the moon, his hair floating about his face. Instead of the priest's distorted face, there is a young man. He's yanked out of the water and gasps. He's in the bathtub, not a lake. The moon is really the light of the bathroom.
Why?
You made a faggot.
Michael pushes Lee under again. A muffled sound of one of the other men. "Hey, Michael, come on, let's go. You're going to kill it." Lee lets out his air in a rush of bubbles. Interior, church, night. Mother lights a prayer candle. She stares at the flame as it dances. Behind it, a cross lit by the flames of the candles. Interior, car, night. April picks up her phone from the seat next to her. She types, "I'm going to try to sleep. I love you," and sends the message to Lee. She hugs her phone to her chest and rests her head against the window. She closes her eyes. Exterior, Lee house, night. A group of men come running out of the house. They run towards the car parked near the cop car. One of the men stops to throw up in the grass. Michael hops in the front, sees Jim making his way back with the decoys, in cuffs. He scowls at the man throwing up.
Hurry the fuck up or I'll leave you.
Another one of the men hops out of the car and helps with the one who threw up into the car. He is shaking and repeating almost nonsense.
You said nothing about killing. Scaring. We were going to scare it, you said.
Once they're both in the car, Michael starts it, speeds off. Jim, dragging the decoys back to his car, sees the car pull away.
The fuck, man? You leaving us for dead? Fuck you!
Jim pays no attention to them. He's staring at the dark house, the TV the only light. Interior, night church. Mother is kneeling in a pew. She has her head down. Police sirens blare past, their lights shining through the stained glass. Mother looks up as they pass, their lights changing the colors of her face. Interior, car, night. April lets her phone slide off her chest and onto the floor. Interior, Lee house, night. The house is still. The movie is playing still on the TV, creating an eerie flickering light. In the bathroom, Lee lies in a tub full of water. His face is completely in the dark. He doesn't move. In the living room, his phone buzzes. A text from April. I love you. Interior, mother house, next morning. Mother's feet shuffle to the recliner in front of the TV. Her hand sets her coffee on the table and picks up the remote. Her finger presses on the button. The TV flashes on. The news. A solemn newscaster stares out from the screen.
In other news, a hate crime has cost a young man his life. Lee Shelley was found unconscious in his home late last night. Jim Griffin, an off-duty cop, was on the scene as protection for the young man and called an ambulance. Unfortunately, Shelley was dead long before the ambulance arrived.
Screen changes to live footage of the Lee house. Police tapes around it. Police mill about. Mother's hand grips the remote.
At this time, no suspects have been named in the tragic murder of this young man.
Mother's hand turns off the TV. The screen is black. In the reflection, Mother's face is barely visible. Her face contorted in the deepest form of confusion and pain.